Me and my friends decided to do a crazy loadout challenge where we only used some of the most unpopular items in Helldivers 2. And to give you an idea of how unpopular these items are, every single one of them has a less than 2% pick rate. My name is Red Monster Thing, but you can call me Red. And now, let's dive right into the rest of the video. In Helldivers 2, there are a lot of weapons. Some weapons are your more traditional shooter weapons like assault rifles and pistols, while others can literally be a mini nuke backpack. But there is a huge debate amongst players of this game about which weapons are the best, or the meta. Man, I really hate that word. And it's no secret that there seems to be some correlation between the most popular weapons and the most effective weapons. There even is a website called Helldive.live that collects their own data on player loadouts. But most veteran players can take a look at a graph like this and recognize that some of the most picked items in the game, according to these charts, aren't anywhere close to what you would consider the meta. And if you want to hear a more in-depth discussion about this, then you really should check out my Liberator Penetrator video. In that video, I explain why that weapon, despite being picked so frequently, is not actually the meta. What's even more crazy is that some of the most powerful weapons we have in the game can have pretty low pick rates. This just goes to show that pick rates can kind of undervalue certain items. And I believe that there are a lot of hidden gems that get completely overlooked just because of how unpopular they are. So today, me and my friends decided to take on the challenge and use some of the most unpopular weapons to prove that pick rates don't mean anything. Starting with the bots, for my first mission, I decided to take the Slugger, Crisper, Seeker, Ballistic Padding Heavy Armor, Eagle Smoke Strike, Speargun, Hot Dog, and the HMG Emplacement. My friends picked their own custom loadouts, choosing items that had a 2% pick rate or lower. And we tried to mix and match in order to accommodate each other's loadouts. For my primary, I chose the Slugger, which has a 0.8% pick rate on the automaton front. Sheesh, that is pretty low, especially considering the fact that at one time, the Slugger used to be a meta primary on the bot front. Seeing this number really got me thinking why this weapon is rarely ever picked now. It's basically a white whale. I'll be completely honest, after using it for an entire match, the Slugger was not really the best pick. While it could one-shot Devastators in the head, this primary weapon has fallen off. It's more comparable to the Deadeye, since it has very similar damage and breakpoints. But the Deadeye basically does everything this gun does, but better. For my secondary, I chose the Crisper, which by the way, only has a 0.3% pick rate on bots. Some of you are probably questioning why anyone would ever pick a flamethrower on the bot front, but let me explain. The Crisper is a great pocket anti-tank option that lets you control crowds at the same time. It can kill tanks extremely easily, and if you can saturate the belly of a Factory Strider for long enough, uninterrupted, you can kill a Factory Strider in a single cartridge. Now, I can understand why some people don't prefer this weapon compared to other anti-tank options. What I don't get is why it's picked so low. And to top off the main part of my build, I decided to pick the Seeker grenades, which only have a 0.9% pick rate. The reason is quite simple. I really hate gunships, and these grenades have a unique feature of targeting certain enemies that you ping. So, in case you are fighting a gunship, you can just pull out a Seeker grenade and bomb it to the ground using modern drone warfare tactics. Yes, seriously. This grenade is an extremely effective tool for taking down only the second most annoying enemy on the bot front. Gunships are a pain in the butt. I died so many times just trying to get footage of them. It's like they have killer aimbot, and they interrupt so much of your movements from the stagger alone. Not to mention that every rocket basically ragdolls you out of cover. I swear, when War Striders eventually get nerfed again, this enemy type is going to be the next unit most people are going to complain about. Honestly, I was shocked that this was picked so low. considering how many people seemed to like this armor passive when it came out. It's pretty much one of the best survival passives you can get on the bot front. So I am surprised that it only has a 1.8% pick rate on this front. So part of the reason why I picked this stratagem is because it was the only eagle under a 2% pick rate. What I was surprised by is how many people picked the Orbital Smoke Strike more than this. Seriously, this has a 0.8% pick rate, but the Orbital variant has 1%. And I don't want to be too harsh on the Orbital Smoke Strike, but the Eagle Smoke Strike has a lot of advantages over this. Starting with its ability to clear bot fabricators. This is a hidden feature most players don't know about. If you position the stratagem just like you're using an Eagle airstrike, you can destroy a bot fabricator most of the time. But if you toss the stratagem in between you and the enemy machines, it will block their vision, making it so they will promptly stop shooting at you. Next up, the Speargun? Hold on a minute. I thought we were supposed to be picking items with low pick rates. Apparently, despite the fact how many of you berated me in my comments about how the Speargun is better than the Railgun in my Railgun video, only 1.1% of all Helldivers actually use the Speargun on the bot front. Well, I'm obviously joking, since this is a great example of how pick rates don't accurately reflect how powerful an item actually is. Although, I'm fully aware that the Speargun has its own little cult following. I should know, this is literally my favorite support weapon. But despite how popular this gun is within the Helldivers 2 community, the pick rates say otherwise. And that is something that deeply saddens me, since this gun is extremely unique with a lot of powerful features. It has the ability to stagger so many enemies and even interrupt a Bile Titan from vomiting. But if you want a full breakdown on why I like the Speargun, you should see my dedicated video on it. Anyways, this gun is exceptionally good, and it's a support weapon I would even say is S tier. Give it a try. While the Hot Dog isn't an unpopular guard dog by any means, its pick rate is much lower on the bot front than anywhere else. It is a 0.4% pick rate on the bot front, which is a little perplexing since this is the only guard dog that has armor penetrating capabilities. It's great at dealing with hulks and controlling small crowds, while simultaneously engulfing all troopers in flame. It's seriously an underrated pick, and still deserves its own little spotlight on the bot front. Now, this is probably the most surprising item on this list. The HMG Emplacement only has a 1.6% pick rate on the automaton front. Now, for those of you who don't know or aren't veterans of the game, this is a big deal, since this item used to be an underrated meta pick for so many Helldivers. And I suspect the reason why this weapon isn't being used nearly as often as it used to is due to the fact our support weapons have gotten stronger over time, and the new anti-tank emplacement is just better in almost every way. But after using this item again, it is still capable of holding back entire bot drops if you position it correctly. It's great when you have a good choke point, and frankly, this is one of the most forgotten tools in our arsenal. For my next match, I swapped my primary weapon with the Amendment, of which I was completely shocked to find it only had a 1% pick rate. Seriously, I hope I don't need to explain why this weapon is so good on the bots. It's one of the better marksman rifles we have, and thanks to its burst fire, it has an insane DPS that tears down berserkers that get too close. I also swapped out the HMG Emplacement with anti-tank mines, and they are actually pretty good. Each anti-tank mine is capable of killing a Hulk with one blast, and they are only triggered by heavier units, so it is a great tool for holding certain positions without killing your friends. So it's a little unexpected to me that this only has a 1% pick rate. But that's all I have to say about the bot front. And surely there are much more underused items that are pretty strong on this front that I missed. This is just what I used in this loadout. As a group, we performed just like it was an average mission. So I would say that this experiment on the bot front was a success. But what about the other two fronts? For the bugs, I decided to take the amendment: crisper, arc grenades, unflinching medium armor, the Eagle 110 rocket pods, the Orbital Airburst strike, the one true flag, and the K9 guard dog. I decided to take the amendment again, since when Commissar Kai showed me how powerful this gun could be on the bug front, I've been craving it ever since. It may be light armor penetrating, but it has a ton of unique qualities that make it able to hold its own against the bugs. Plus, with its bayonet alone, you can easily kill hive guards and warriors. Of course, I couldn't leave out the crisper on this front, so I took it again. You'd expect it to be picked more on the bug front, since fire is just that good against bugs. However, it only has a 1.8% pick rate. That's almost 2%, so it's a bit on the higher end, but still, this is an underappreciated sidearm on this front. Now for my throwables, I decided to use the arc grenades. There are two reasons for this. One, all grenades that could close bug holes were actually picked more than 2%. And two, the arc grenades are ridiculously good at clearing out groups of enemies. I mean, sure, everything else under 2% wasn't nearly as good. Unless you really like using stun grenades, then I highly recommend using those. I don't think throwing knives are all that great, and most of these other options here are so niche that their pick rates make complete sense. But the arc nades are pretty powerful, and while they'd probably be even better if they didn't bounce like a jelly bean, I think they are suitable for this video. Ah yes, many of you know that the main armor I use in this game has the Unflinching armor passive. And whether you believe me or not, I don't just use this armor because it's a certain shade of red, which many of you have speculated is my favorite color, but that's only something I'll tell you once we hit 100k subscribers. What surprises me is how little this armor passive is used on the bug front. It has a 1.7% pick rate on the bugs, and it's true that this armor set gets more usage on other fronts like the bots, but don't underestimate it on bugs. As the name suggests, this armor is packaged with the unflinching mechanic, which makes it harder for lighter attacks to flinch you. What's confusing is how even when flinched, your character still shows an animation of you flinching, even though technically you're not. Even if it worked the way you imagined it, it probably wouldn't be that desirable on its own, so Arrowhead generously decided to bundle in 2 extra passives. It gives you plus 25 extra padding to your overall armor rating, which is nice because that makes all attacks from all sources much weaker. But also, you have this third passive where you can use map pings to tell you where enemies are. This map pinging feature by itself is a pretty great tool to help you to avoid danger and picking apart bases, but it's more of a stealth tool if you think about it. And this armor set feels like it's supposed to help you withstand heavy engagements. So one change I would make is swap out the map pinging passive and replace it with 2 extra grenades. This way you get to use a more offensive approach, but also there are literally 2 grenades on my chest, so why don't I have 2 extra grenades? The Eagle 110 rocket pods just got a buff, so I assume this number is probably more inflated now than what it shows on Helldive.live, because here it says it has a 1.9% pick rate, which is considerably high when you think about how many stratagems are in this game. But I couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk about this stratagem and its new buff. With its tighter spread, it one-shots Charger Behemoths extremely easily now. And against Bile Titans, it's a solid 2-tap, and if you're lucky, it will one-shot it if it hits the Bile Titan in the head. Now be warned, the Orbital Airburst strike is a team-killing machine. As effective as it is at clearing hordes of enemy units, the reason why this stratagem likely doesn't get picked very often is how frequently users of said stratagem get kicked from the lobby. It only has a 1.4% pick rate. Don't underestimate how strong this is though, because if you can time it and put it on a bug breach, this can net you a ton of kills. Just be wary of the position of your teammates. Probably the weakest part of this build was the one true flag, which you got to know isn't the most impressive weapon in our arsenal. It only has medium armor pen, and its whole shtick is that it draws aggro away from other players. So it's kind of a double negative, where it draws so much aggro onto you that it can actually benefit the team by providing relief. So this support weapon is definitely a weapon that requires much more skill to use effectively, since once you die, the aggro spreads back to the rest of your teammates. What surprises me is that despite how unique this feature is, it's only picked around 0.4% of the time. My hope is that the reason why is because not enough players understand how to use the mechanic, and that if more players knew how, it would probably be picked more often. And last but not least, the K9 Guard Dog. Once again, this is another team kill item, so its low pick rate kind of makes sense. It only has a 1.7% pick rate. However, just because it's unpopular doesn't mean it's weak. It's basically an arc thrower with a low fire rate strapped to a drone. So that means it has infinite ammo, but it also stuns and staggers enemies that are approaching you. This guard dog has a pretty strong bite to it, and if you aren't careful about your positioning, that bite can really hurt your team. Overall, it's a great crowd control stratagem and gives you a lot of personal space. For the squids, I decided to take the Deadeye, Dagger, Seeker Grenades, Electoral Conduit Medium Armor, the Eagle 110 Rocket Pods, the Arc Thrower, the Speargun, and the Hover Pack. I don't understand why the Deadeye only has a 1.1% pick rate on the Illuminate. This primary is one of the best options for killing Overseers in one clean headshot. And for a while, I saw this weapon as one of the meta options on this front, considering that Overseers are some of the most dangerous units to fight. Nothing is more satisfying than lining up a shot on these guys and taking them down in one swing. The Dagger is a pretty underrated pick, with only a 1.4% pick rate. Just like the Scythe, you can use this to spray and pray while lighting up all of the voteless on fire. It's a very effective chaff clear tool. Seeker Grenades have a unique niche on the Illuminate front that I was certain would make it a more popular pick. But for some reason, Thermite has a whopping 38.4% pick rate on this front. Guys, I'm not trying to make fun of you or anything, but Thermites are not the most effective grenade on this front. It's very challenging to use Thermites on Harvesters, for example, and Flesh Mobs are way too common for it to be hardly worth it. If you were to ask me what I thought were the best grenades on the Illuminate front, I'd probably say any of the 3 incendiary grenades. That way, you have a ton of crowd clear capabilities. However, I would say that the runner-up would be the Seeker Grenades, because they deserve to be put in more people's loadouts. This is thanks to their unique ability to track targets you ping and take down flying Overseers. Seriously, these enemies are so annoying thanks to their quick flying speed and unpredictable maneuvers. With the Seeker Grenades, you can trivialize this engagement and make killing them easy. However, the only problem with equipping Seeker Grenades is the fact you can't destroy enemy spawners. Now, it seems that a lot of players are resistant to the Electrical Conduit Armor passive, which, in a way, kind of connects. It has a hyper niche passive that only really applies when your teammates either bring arc weapons or you're fighting enemies with electrifying attacks. This is because it helps players resist 95% electrical damage. What is truly shocking is how many sources of lightning damage there are on the Illuminate front. Yet, this armor passive is only used 1.9% of the time. Harvesters have lightning attacks at short range. Same with Watchers, and there are these Tesla towers that many of you guys still complain about. I guess there aren't a lot of players who are amped up enough to use this armor passive. It's pretty polarizing that this is one of the most direct solutions to this electrifying death. Yet most players would rather share their charged criticism about the arc damage instead of grounding themselves in reality by taking the intended armor passive that solves this current issue. I can't really think of a better armor passive to take against the Illuminate, since there are so many sources of electricity. The fact that this armor passive doesn't have a high frequency in usage rates is something that hurts my feelings. Okay, I'll stop now. I decided to once again take the 110 rocket pods. This way, we could kill harvesters. But to be honest, it's very inconsistent. It can sometimes be one shot, but usually it's two. Although, harvesters don't spawn that much, so this stratagem was actually pretty useful. Now, I personally love the arc thrower on this front. Not only are you able to charge your enemies with 1000 joules of electrical pain, but it's also a great crowd control item against hordes of voteless. I can understand why people don't like the arc thrower on other fronts, but against squids, this is one of the best options. It's even pretty good on the Appropriator's sub-faction. The only real issue with this weapon is that it doesn't really stun enemies for as long as I would like, and it can't shoot through bushes or dead bodies. I get that the reason why this only has a 0.9% pick rate is because it's more of a control item, but so many Helldivers underestimate how useful this item can be on this front. This might be a weird pick, but I also took the Speargun. Now, the Speargun is pretty good on the Illuminate front for a number of reasons. If you're like me and prefer to use some kind of support weapon or grenade pistol to clear bases, the Speargun is a great option for destroying Illuminate ships. What I'm still surprised by is the fact that it has a 1.3% pick rate, because this weapon can briefly stop flesh mobs mid-charge, and if you somehow hit the shot, it will one-shot a harvester in the eye. It's a great weapon for killing overseers in the head too, and overall, clearing enemy camps. I feel like I've talked about this weapon a lot though, so I'm just going to talk about our final item in this video. The Hover Pack is an underrated beast on the Illuminate front. It's basically your portable high ground stratagem that can make you feel just like a Mandalorian. But don't be fooled, it's not necessarily powerful on its own. You have to build into it. Because, obviously speaking, flying up really high isn't really all that strong, considering what goes up must inevitably come down. But if you pair this with the arc thrower, you can get some serious mileage. With the arc thrower in hand, you basically eliminate all obstacles that could potentially block its arc. One of the arc thrower's biggest problems is that it will be blocked by bushes and dead bodies, making a constant stream of kills pretty much impossible the more kills you get, which is pretty frustrating, not going to lie. This stratagem works as a temporary fix to that issue, and makes targeting enemies feel way more smooth like it should be. There are also plenty of grenades and explosive stratagems that pair really well with the Hover Pack too, since you can easily fly up and avoid the explosive range of, say, something like a cluster bomb. But anyways, that's all I have to say about these items with a 2% pick rate or less. This hopefully proves to some of you that pick rates don't automatically mean that an item is meta, and if not, well, I did my job selling you guys propaganda really horribly. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe. It helps a ton, and it means a lot.